this batch. Okay, let's move on. Question 1. Explain the terms Prakshepatmika and Avaranatmika 4 and 5. And 5. Okay. The definition is not explained here, and they're requesting us to. Prakshepatmika has not been explained here. It is implicit, it's not explicit. No, I'll cancel this question. Let me just not this one. Well, I'm not able to find it. Okay, got it. For chapter 30. Okay, 2. The numbers are not right. Or is this some gigantic question? 2. Describe family relationships in the material world and in Krishna Loka 7. This much. In Krishna Loka, there are also family, friends, society, father and mother. Everything is there, but they are eternal. Here, as we change bodies, our family relationships also change. Sometimes we are in a family of human beings, sometimes in a family of demigods, sometimes a family of cats, or sometimes a family of dogs. 3. List the points you find interesting from Lord Kapila Dev's description of 1. Family life. 2. The miseries afflicted the sinner on the way to Yamaraj's planet. 3. Hellish punishments for materials. Only that much. List the points you find interesting. That is, we'll change it to list 3 points. List the point List 3 points. List the points you find interesting. Instead of that, I'll list 3 points from Lord Kapil Dev's description of a family life. That alone should be 3.1. 3.1 should be a separate question. Also 3.2 and 3.3. These are all separate questions. So that means list 3 points from Lord Kapil Dev's description of a family life. Let's look at this. 8 to 18. He gives heart and senses to a woman who falsely charms him with Maya. He enjoys solitary embraces and talking with her, and is enchanted by the sweet words of the small children. The attached householder remains in his family life, full of diplomacy and politics, always spreading miseries and controlled by acts of sense gratification. He acts just to counteract the reactions of all his miseries. And if he can successfully counteract such miseries, he thinks that he is happy. He secures money by committing violence here and there. And although he employs it in the service of his family, he himself eats only a little portion of the food thus purchased. He goes to hell for those for whom he earned the money in such an irregular way. When he suffers reverses in his occupation, he tries again and again to improve himself. And when he is baffled in all attempts and is ruined, he accepts money from others because of excessive greed. Thus, the unfortunate man, unsuccessful in maintaining his family members, is bereft of all beauty. He always thinks of his failure, grieving very deeply. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before. Even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food, and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. In the disease condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within, and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sound like gura gura, a rattling within the throat. In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the control of time. Thus, the man who engaged with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief, seeing his relatives cry. He dies most pathetically, in great pain and without consciousness. Then, list 3 points from Lord Kapila Deva's description of the miseries afflicted to the sinner on the way to Yamaraj's planet, 19 to 24. At death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and unit. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. While carried by the constables of Yamaraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is just terribly distressed. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and he is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. While passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue, and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments. And then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. List 3 points from Lord Kapila Dev's description of hellish punishments for a materialist, 25 to 28. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases, he made to eat his own flesh or have it eaten by others. His entrails are pulled out by the hounds and vultures of hell, even though he is still alive to see it. And he is subjected to torment by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and other creatures that bite him. Next, his limbs are lopped off and torn asunder by elephants. He is hurled down from hilltops. He is also held captive, either in water or in a cave. Men and women whose lives were built upon indulgence in illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamisra, Antha and Raurava. Okay, then main question 4. What important function do the dogs engaged by Yamaraj perform? 21. While passing from this planet to the planet of Yamaraj, the culprit arrested by Yamaraj's constables meets many dogs which bark and bite just to remind him of his criminal activities of sense gratification. Question 5. Why are hellish punishments sometimes visible on this planet also? 29. Actually, the question should be modified. The question should be, really how the question should be slightly modified. Why is it said that there are hellish punishments sometimes visible on this planet? Also, this should be the question. And the answer to that will be this. Sometimes unbelievers do not accept these statements of scripture regarding hell. They disregard such authorized descriptions. Lord Kapila therefore confirms them by saying that these hellish conditions are also visible on this planet. Analogies. 3.30.1. I think this is the translation itself. As a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of the wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is being carried. 8. Purport. Family life within the kingdom of illusory energy, Maya, is just like a prison for the eternal living. In prison, a prisoner is shackled by iron chains and iron bars. Similarly, a conditioned soul is shackled by the charming beauty of a woman and by her solitary embraces in talks of so-called love and by the sweet words of his small children. 13. Translation. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before, even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. 32. When a man steals some money, he is caught. What is this? This is a purport. This purport. When a man steals some money, if he's caught and agrees to return it, he's not freed from the criminal punishment. By the law of the state, even though he returns the money, he has to undergo the punishment. Similarly, the money earned by a criminal process may be left by the man when dying, but by superior arrangement, he carries with him the effect, and therefore he has to suffer hellish life. 31. One, by what two factors is a living entity made to enter into the womb of a woman? I think the answer is right here. Under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his work. The living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman. 2. Describe the condition of the child in the womb. 5 to 9. It's pretty long. I'll slightly modify that question to summarize. 31. Two. Instead of describe, summarize. Summarize the condition of the child in the. Wait, let me rewrite that question. Summarize also may be vague. So the question should be summarize the condition of the child in the womb in 4 lines. So in 4 lines, you should summarize it. Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms, bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself. The child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition, owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuff or food which is too salty or too sour. The child and the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable. Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned towards his belly, and his back and neck arched like a bow. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? 3. Why does the human soul in the womb pray to the Lord? No, this will require a lot of understanding question. I'll cancel it. Question 4. Why does a living entity not wish to depart from the mother's abdomen 20? Okay. By the influence of Maya, the external energy, one forgets everything just after birth. Therefore, the child is praying that he prefers to remain within the womb rather than come out. Okay. Then, right. Question 5. What general principle does Srila Prabhupada draw from the fact that the child can be fully Krishna conscious within the womb of the mother until one? It is not necessary to arrange for paraphernalia to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. The child wants to remain within the abdomen of its mother and at the same time wants to become free from the clutches of Maya. One does not need any material arrangement to cultivate Krishna consciousness. One can cultivate Krishna consciousness anywhere and everywhere, provided he can always think of Krishna. That is the principle. 6. What is the special significance of Radha Krishna worship? 38. Instead of being attracted by material beauty, if one is accustomed to being attracted by the beauty of Radharani and Krishna, then the statement of Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishtva Nivartate, holds true. When one is attracted by the transcendental beauty of Radha and Krishna, is no longer attracted by material feminine beauty. That is the special significance of Radha Krishna worship. Question 7. Why is the tendency to be attracted by beauty natural? Something is wrong. It's not here. here. The reference is not correct. The reference should be 38. Why is the tendency to be attracted by beauty natural? It is explained by the Goswamis that Radharani is a manifestation of the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of God. Supreme Lord wants to derive transcendental pleasure. He has to create a woman from his internal potency. Thus, the tendency to be attracted by womanly beauty is natural because it exists in this spiritual world. In the material world, it is reflected pervertedly, and therefore there are so many inabilities, so many problems. The reference should be changed. Question 8. Explain the meaning of Anadi Karma Phale. Anadi Karma Phale 44. Anadi Karma Phale means. Correct. It is clear that the particular body is given to the living entity for a particular type of activity. This process is going on perpetually from a time which is impossible to trace out. Vaishnava poets therefore say Anadi Karma Phale, which means that these actions and reactions of one's activity cannot be traced, or they may even continue from the last millennium of Brahma's birth to the next millennium. Analogies. 19. Purport. The evolutionary process of different types of bodies is something like that of a fructifying flower. Just as there are different stages in the growth of a flower, the bud stage, the blooming stage, and the full-fledged grown-up stage of aroma and beauty. Similarly, there are 8,400,000 species of bodies in gradual evolution, and there is a systematic progress from the lower species of life to the higher. 40. Purport. One who associates with such Maya, the form of a woman, by accepting services, must certainly know that this is the way of death. Just like a blind well covered with grass. Sometimes it happens that a rejected well is covered by grass. An unwary traveler who does not know of the existence of falls down, his death is assured. 42. Translation. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. 44. Purport. Materialistic life involves a series of actions and reactions. It is a long film spool of actions and reactions, and one lifespan is just a flash in such a reactionary show. 32. Question 1. Explain the difference between pravritti and nivritti dharma 6. There are two kinds of religious performances. One is called pravritti dharma, which means well, the destinations. There are two kinds of religious performances. One is called pravritti dharma, which means religious activities performed by the Grihmedis for elevation to higher planets or for economic prosperity, the final aim of which is sense gratification. Every one of us who has come to this material world has a sense of overlordship. This is called pravritti. But the opposite type of religious performance, which is called nivritti, is to act for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engaged in devotion service in Krishna consciousness, one has no proprietorship claim, nor is one situated in the false egoism of thinking that he is God or the master. He always thinks himself the servant. That is a process of purifying consciousness. With pure consciousness only can one enter into the kingdom of God. Question 2. Describe the destination of persons who are worshippers of Hiranyagarbha. Persons who are worshippers of Hiranyagarbha, the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, do not directly approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vaikuntha. They remain within this universe on Satyaloka or other higher planets until the end of the life of Brahma. Then with Brahma, they're elevated to the spiritual kingdom. Question 3. Why are the materialists compared to stool-eating hogs? 19. The hog is interested in eating stool. If the hog is offered some nice preparation made of condensed milk or ghee, he won't like it. He would prefer obnoxious, bad smelling stool, which he finds very delicious. Materialistic persons are considered condemned because they are interested in hellish activities and not in transcendental activities. 4. Explain how, for a devotee, there is no question of agreeable or disagreeable. 25. Perception of the disagreeable arises from attachment. A devotee has no personal attachment to anything. Therefore, for him, there's no question of agreeable or disagreeable. For the service of the Lord, he can accept anything. even though it may be disagreeable to his personal interest. In fact, he is completely free from personal interest, and thus anything agreeable to the Lord is agreeable to him. Five, list briefly the different activities prescribed for the four orders of the social system to elevate one to the platform of self-realization. 54 to 36. 54 to 36. For the dresses or householders, performance of sacrifices, distribution of charity, and action according to prescribed duties are especially recommended. Similarly, austerity, study of Vedic literature, and philosophical research are meant for the vanaprasthas or retired persons. Study of the Vedic literature from the bona fide spiritual master is meant for the brahmachari or student. Atmendriya Jaya, control of the mind and taming of the senses is meant for persons in the renounced order of life. 6. List the two symptoms of advancement in the process of devotional service. The bhakti of the process contains two symptoms, namely attachment for the Supreme Lord and detachment from all material affinities. Question 7. Summarize the main points of Srila Prabhupada's purport to verse 40. Summarize it in how? The summarize is also understanding question. Earlier also there was a summary question for chapter 31. Wait, let me delete that question. This question also I deleted because it's an understanding question. This is chapter 42. Eight. Explain what it means to be a bhakta. 42. The question should be explain what it means to be a bhakta. In text 42 or according to text 42. In this context, this is what it means. Modify. Systematic to the explain what it explain what bhakta means. Explain what bhakta means. According to explain what bhakta means. Explain what the word bhakta means in text 3.32.42. Explain what the word bhakta means in text 3.32.42. Here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory processes for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. To serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these five chief activities is called the devotee. Analogy 34 to 36 purport. A hungry man feels strength and satisfaction from eating. At the same time, he gradually becomes detached from eating anymore. Similarly, with the execution of devotional service, real knowledge develops and one becomes detached from all material feelings. And 33.
So, in the previous question, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person.
Where?
That is in 42. Here. So that Bhakta. Here Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavatam.
From a realized person.
Here realized person means?
Realized person. God realized soul. Okay, 33.
But we also hear from those who are not realized.
Okay. If you don't have a realized person, then you can listen to the not yet realized to whatever extent their understanding is in line with the teachings of the person. Second best.
Then that will help us to realize.
There will be of some help. You don't deny that. We have some help. No guarantee.
No guarantee. Then how?
Then therefore all the other items are good. Krishna will help.
Other four items.
Krishna will help. He surrenders to Krishna and Krishna. 33, question 1. What stage was achieved by the 1? Jivan Mukti means that one is liberated even though one stays with this material body. That happened for Devahuti, the mother of Lord Kapila. Question 2. Why is Devahuti astonished? 2. Okay. Devahuti said, "You are the background of the material manifestation in all created energy. Therefore, your delivering me from the clutches of Maya by explaining the system of Sankhya philosophy is not so astonishing. But your being born from my abdomen is certainly wonderful because although you are the source of all creation, you have so kindly taken birth as my child. That is most wonderful. Your body is the source of all the universe, and still you put your body within the abdomen of a common woman like me. To me, that is most astonishing. 3. What type of utterance of the holy name is required to immediately become eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices? 6 and 7. What type of utterance? Yeah. Yeah. That's immediately eligible. A person who has once offenselessly chanted the holy name of God becomes immediately eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. 4. What is the example of Thakur Haridas show? 7. Thakur Haridas was apparently born in a family of Mohammedans, but because he was chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord offenselessly, Lord Chaitanya empowered him to become the authority or Acharya of the Linga name. It did not matter that he was born in a family which was not following the Vedic rules and regulations. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita accepted him as an authority because he was offenselessly chanting the name of the Lord.
So, in the previous question, immediately become eligible to perform Vedic sacrifice when one offenselessly chanted the holy name. So if one is not chanting offenselessly, still if he performs Vedic sacrifice, does it happen?
No, then he has to face a lot of trouble. Then you have to check whether he is materially eligible. All these controversies will immediately come back. 5. How can we see if one is a Jivan Mukta? 10. Iha yasya harir dasya, regardless of where he is situated. Anyone whose only aim is to serve the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master is called Jivan Mukta, or one who is liberated, even with this material body. 6. Why did Kapila Deva leave home? Well, this is going to be a long answer. The whole purport is there. Too long. It's 2 points actually. It's just too long. It's an understanding question or what? Question 6. This is what chapter? 33. Okay, so it should be skipped because it requires the entire purport as an answer. 7. What was the way of Vedic civilization in regard to household paraphernalia? 17. The way of Vedic civilization is that whatever was used in household affairs had to be valuable. In case of need, such items of value could be exchanged immediately. Thus, once broken unwanted furniture and paraphernalia never be used.
But here, bro, the Vedic civilization life is also should be very simple, not to worry worry about.
There are four varnas. There are four varnas. Vaishyas and rich.
Vaishyas and rich. But general principle for that living style should be simple.
That's okay, but Vaishyas and Kshatriyas have to have a big palace. If you don't have a big palace, no one else will not be excited. Prabhupada explains all this.
But for Kali Yuga, we can't manage.
What is fun?
Becoming, maintaining the household life as mentioned. Because to live in Kali Yuga, it is very difficult, says. Well, money and maintaining a family members is everything.
That's okay, but if they have valuable materials which can be used in times of emergency, it's always better. That's why Prabhupada explains all this. See, this is still followed by Indians and also the fact they give metal utensils and golden ornaments or silver plates and valuable silk garments with gold embroidery. And in case of need, they can have some money in exchange immediately.
But there is a problem of thief.
Is there? That is also there. That is there.
So his life is all whole life is anxiety.
That's correct. Anxiety. That's correct. Household life means full of anxiety only. Okay, then 8. What general principles can be drawn from Devahuti? This is the attachment to her son. Devahutis. 20 to 22. 8 to 22. Wow, what is this? 20, 21, 22. Oh, that's an understanding question. And to where was Devahuti promoted? 30. It is to be understood that Devahuti entered the planet which is called Kapila Vaikuntha. This is the answer to this question. Analogies. 6. Purport. Shri Sanatana Goswami. As a base metal like bell metal can be changed into gold by a chemical process, any person can similarly be changed into a Brahmana by Diksha with one initiation process. 7. Purport. If one is seated on the bench of a high court and is giving judgment on cases, it means that he has already passed all legal exams and is better than those who are engaged in the study of law. In a similar way, persons who are chanting the holy name are transcendental to those who are factually performing the Vedic rituals and those who expect to be qualified. 28. Purport. It is customary in the renounced order of life that one should not take any service from a servant or maid, but Devahuti was being served by the celestial maidservants. This may appear to be against the spiritual concept of life, but just as fire is still beautiful, even when surrounded by smoke, she looked completely pure, although it seemed that she was living in a luxurious way. Okay, we'll stop with that. On Shankar Putarivashchi, awesome.